Hello, Alex RC Freak here, coming at you with another video of my green actual 8S Traxxas X Max. I did that running video on my channel, and I just want to say thank you to anyone and everybody who watches my videos, takes moments of their time to watch them, and then also comments. I do appreciate the comments because I like talking RC. I love RC. It's an awesome hobby, and I think it's good, clean fun. So, you know, anyway, let's move on to the video. So basically this, I only ran it that one time. Now keep in mind, I was running it on Florian 6S 8000 mAh batteries, 11.1 volt batteries, 2 of them running in series on 40C. I said 35C in the video. They're 40C. These batteries ain't the greatest because they don't have that punch, that high-end punch from a dead stop. But they're great, just trail run type battery. Just for a light bash, you don't want to beat the snot out of it. Now I am running the 200 amp constant 6.5 millimeter Castle Creation connectors. Now, let me just say one thing about these connectors. They are kind of a pain to plug in and out of. They're tight, but that's why you make a tool like this to adjust them on the male connector parts. But anyway, I will show you, I'll make a separate video on how I do these connectors to where you don't damage them, because a lot of people complain on these connectors saying that they're hard to plug in and all that kind of stuff. So I'll do a video showing that, how to do that. It's a separate video though. But anyway, on any big vehicle like this, I like to run the actual Castle Creations connectors because the XT90s or the XT150s don't even slightly compete with Castle Creations connectors. Yes, Castle Creations connectors are kind of a pain to solder, and you do need a good, high quality Weller soldering gun. This is 260 amps to 200 watts, so it has a dual stage trigger. I love this. Actually get a name brand soldering gun. If you're into RCs, strongly recommended. So don't go to Harbor Freight and be a cheap ass and get their junk ass soldering gun where this freaking just melts off. Just spend the money and get a decent soldering gun. Simple as that. But anyway, back to the truck. I just had to get that out of the way. So this is the X Max right here. This body is like brand new. It's never been ran. I probably will never run it just because it's green and I like green a lot. But anyway, this is the truck right here. Now, let me just show you. This is the ESC. For anyone who may or may not know, this is the ESC. Traxxas states on the wire right here that it is 10 gauge wire. I say a giant bullshit on that. Sorry to say it like that, but it's the truth. This is not 10 gauge wire. I don't care what you say. This is 12 gauge wire. But the insulation is a little bigger, thicker. The actual insulation goes around the actual wire inside here is thicker to fake to make it look like a 10 gauge wire. Because 10 gauge wire will not fit, or it's extremely tight fit, inside these Traxxas terminals here. So, this connector. So, I'm going to put Castle connectors on this, but anyway, like I say, that isn't 10 gauge wire. So basically I was not happy with the stock performance of this ESC myself. I was running 6S in that video, not 8S. I got higher end 8S batteries for the truck. So I don't know if it was just one of those, and I wasn't running my good 6S batteries either. Let me just state that. Those were just my light driving around 6S batteries. So I got some higher end SMC batteries that have never ran, that are a lot higher C. They're like 80, 90C continuous. So they're a lot better 6S battery. So like I say, these fans don't, the cooling fans for the motor here, they kind of sound sick when the rig's on. They don't sound like they're gonna like last very long. This motor actually seems like it has a lot of power, but this ESC, the stock one, the VXL 8S one, kind of slows that down. So, and also I did this battery strap mod, and it popped off right here in the video. It popped out, and the battery popped off. So you know, I'm just gonna, all the rest of them are really nice. Like, that one's really nice and tight. I don't think I had this in there, jammed in there enough, and it just kind of managed to slip out. So I'm gonna put it back in, and then I think it'll be alright. And just make sure it's better seated. I got 42.2 or 42.5 shock oil in all 4 shocks, and it'll take 3 full bottles of shock oil to do that. And that's if you don't drop any shock oil or waste any shock oil. And that's to correctly bleed them to where they don't have any bubbles from top. So I got 100K diff fluid in the front and rear, 20 million in the torque biasing center drive. And that seems to be perfect. I filled the torque biasing center drive because it hardly had any fluid in it. So let me get some light over here on this truck. And yeah, sorry about that. But anyway, this is the truck's underbelly. It's a little scratched right there, maybe a nick right there, but literally still looks brand new. It's literally only been driven once. I need to go through it and clean it. But let me show you, because I'm not trying to keep this video forever. This ESC still works absolutely perfectly. I'm not doing it. It's not doing any weird glitching, jittering. It's not doing the weird on-off switch issue that some people may say. I know Traxxas electronics will fail. Their ESCs, I mean that in particular, will fail. It's just a matter of when. So, it's Traxxas. So, anyway, I went and got some stuff. So, I'm going to show you the first thing. I got some Castle Creations 6.5mm polarized connectors. Now, I'm going to show you, there's a way, with these females, people say use these kind of a wrench and stick it down in the center of this and tap on it to get this to pop in to this connector. Don't do it that way. I did it that way when I very first started these, and I messed up these connectors. I went through a whole package and screwed them all up. So, these are kind of expensive connectors, 12 bucks for a pack of 3 of them. It's kind of pricey, but they are top-notch connectors. So, with a little bit of skill, soldering skill, and just some common sense, or just getting to know these connectors, you can solder these together, or solder these all, and not have issues. And I custom made some connectors to prevent that. To prevent these, because when you use this, jam it in there, these little, I don't know if you want to call them pins or whatever, because it's all slotted up here, and that's what makes it tight. And you want a nice, tight, snug fit, but you don't want it too tight to where it's like not going to come off. So you got to adjust it with that tool I mentioned earlier. But anyway, you could use a 6.5mm female end and stick it over this, and you can use channel locks. And what I mean by channel locks is you don't need the biggest set of channel locks. You just need a channel lock like that. Something that's adjustable. You know, you can adjust. Let me stick these connectors down. You can adjust it and just lightly squeeze like that. Just a light little squeeze and it'll pop in. So I will make a separate video on how I solder that, just so you know. And this is the thing I made. This is the little end. It's actually the Castle Creations female plug-in, so you will need a kind of waste one to make this tool. I just used a little piece of wood, JB Weld. I put a little bit more hardener in there so it dries a little sooner, and it works great. I love it, and you can just adjust it to your personal liking. Now, here's the Q-tip, okay? Now, this is the female end. Now, on the connector side of the battery, since we're talking about connectors real quickly here, this right here, inside here, here's a Q-tip. Use dielectric grease. Put it on a piece of paper or whatever, put a little amount down there. Take a Q-tip, rub the Q-tip in the dielectric grease, take the Q-tip again, and put a little bit of dielectric grease inside here, just a little bit. I have never tried this yet, but just put a little bit in there and it'll act as a little bit of a lubricant, so when you go to plug in your batteries, it won't be so dry feeling. It'll have just a smidge of lubricity, can pronounce it there. So anyway, but yeah, so that way it makes it a little smoother on the connection. So, and dielectric grease is made for electrical components. So on real automobiles, you use that to keep moisture and water out of the connectors for engine harnesses or whatever it may be. So I strongly recommend you trying that. on that stuff. So don't put too much in there where it gushes out and then attracts all kinds of dirt to the connector. Just put a little bit in there. That's all you need. That's what you should do with your receiver box. Just a tiny bit, just around the seal, around this foam seal inside here. You should put a tiny bit, and I apologize if this video is going to be a little bit long, but I don't like leaving stuff out. Also, let me show you this other thing. This is a Wi-Fi module for the any hobbywing ESC can use this. This Wi-Fi module, you'll actually need to update the firmware on your speed control. And I am one of those huge believers in this hobby to make sure that your firmware of your RC vehicle on your speed control is up to date as much as possible. So it's a good idea to maybe once or twice a month to check that as like a regular thing to check. Just get in the habit to it. It's not that bad. And this, you can adjust it. It's like Castle Creations Castle Link, to where you can adjust it on a computer. And you can adjust this on your cell phone. So, which is kind of nice. You always have, most people have a cell phone or smartphone, and you can adjust it on your smartphone to whatever parameters you want, from my knowledge. This is my first ever Hobbywing ESC, but I like to keep this waterproof. So, Castle Creations, the XLX ESC, I love that ESC. Awesome ESC. It doesn't come factory waterproof. I wanted something factory waterproof. And it would stick in between these chassis top plate. In between here where I didn't have to have a separate plate. Now my other X-Maxx with the XLX system, I love that system, don't get me wrong. You have to put another plate on there or whatever. But anyway, here's the Hobbywing Max 6 ESC. 160 amps continuous wattage, which is a lot. You know, you don't need... The Max 5 has 200 amp continuous wattage. So this is fully waterproof. It does have a switch there, and there's the set button. This is the actual power on switch, obviously. There's a set button to program whatever you want, if you don't have that wireless module. So let me push this out here. So this is the ESC. This is the 10 gauge wire, an extra piece you have to purchase to make this series connector. It's basically this connector that goes right across here. So there's a one for positive. The negative goes to the positive on the positive side, just so you know. This is the ESC. Now this is a nice sized ESC, obviously. You got the cooling fan here. You got the capacitors right here. They are very big capacitors, which is nice. And these basically store electricity so you don't have voltage ripple. Because you do not want to have voltage ripple, fluctuation in current when you're getting on it. So, just stating that as so everyone knows. So what you get in the box, you get wires with 6.5 millimeter ends pre-soldered and heat shrinked, which is nice. You should always heat shrink wires. Never use those little twist connectors that some people do to do ghetto away. You always do a nice solder. You know, these are 10 gauge 200C wire, nice wires, but you know, I'm going to chuck those aside because I'm not going to use them. But this is some heat shrink. I like how it comes with black and red, a nice generous amount. Comes with a couple zip ties, some double side tape for your switch, and for the ESC. I'm going to use actual automotive tape, and I strongly recommend you use an adhesion promoter. When you just spray a light little thing of adhesion promoter on the ESC, stick the tape to it. You know, you could spray it on the chassis of the vehicle, stick the tape to it, it's clear. You'll never see any residue. And it'll really make sure it sticks very well. And make sure you clean the surface. So, anyway, you get that. Obviously, you get the instructions. I have not read these yet, and I strongly recommend you do, especially if you're unfamiliar with stuff. But, yeah, that's the user manual. Pretty good size. And also, you get the stickers. So, I'm going to stick all this back in the bag here. I will be doing a video of this soldering the wires on this ESC. Now, I like the X-Maxx truck. This truck itself, out of the box, after you properly clean the differentials, the rear differentials, the torque biasing, center drive, all the gears, parts, you know, you dye everything black if you like, change all the shock fluid out and clean them. right out of the box before you ever drive it for the first time, it's a great truck. It will be a problem-free truck for the most part, except for the ESC, because the ESC will go out on you eventually. Now, I'm not saying every single RC or ESC is gonna fail. I'm just saying usually it will, and it all goes depend. Like if you're driving a lot of moisture and just put it away in the garage or in the basement or whatever you put your RC, it's probably gonna fail eventually. But this is the ESC. Now let me tell you something I do like about this ESC. The cooling fan for the ESC is plugged into the ESC. You don't actually have a separate wire that you have to plug into your receiver, which is kind of nice. So this one, obviously capacitors right here, you know, easy run, max 6, 3 to 8S LiPo, you know, 6 amp to max 25 amp, you know, BEC in it, which is pretty nice. You know, black housing, which I kind of like black, you know, the, you know, ports, 6.5 millimeter ports, so it'll work nice. Yeah, it's just a really nice ESC, so you just got to make this wire harness. I strongly recommend not to make these any shorter. Yeah, I just got a foot of this black, and I'm not going to really cut this, because then, you know, I'm going to have it to where I can bend it, you know, kind of thing, to where it's like this. You basically just run it like that. So, is how you do it. So I'm going to have it so you can bend it, and that way the wires can bend nice. And another thing to check, make sure when they, because this wire is soldered directly to the circuit board inside here of the ESC, so make sure this moves nice and free. It's not soldered up all the way here and then it bends like that. Just a thing to note when you get it. This is the on-off switch. Put double-sided tape here and you stick it anywhere you want. You can stick it to the side of this if you want, whatever you want to do. I wouldn't recommend that. This is the wire. It's a nice long lead, which is nice. These wires kind of come pre-tinned, but they're not that well pre-tinned, so I'm going to pre-tin them a little better. This cooling fans on these are pretty nice from what I hear from shock. They're made shock resistant, which is nice. They bolt on, which is nice. It's all watertight design, which is kind of cool. If you're one of those people that, in my opinion, I'm just going to say it honestly, do it stupid when you clean a traxxas vehicle, I'll say that, and you take your garden hose and you wash it off because you drive in mud and stuff, and you're too lazy to actually take it apart and clean it by hand, then I guess this is perfect for you. But I'm not ever going to do that. But anyway, this is the ESC. It'll fit right in between here, and it's the same size as the stock one, but it's a better ESC, better quality. And I just wanted to do a quick video kind of showing you what I'm doing, what's up with my truck, my rig. I like it. I'm really happy with it. I think this motor actually has a lot more power under the hood, but the speed control is what gives the motor power. I mean, the motor does give it power to a point, but if you have a weak speed control, you know, the speed control is like the transmission. If you have a car with 1,000 horsepower, but your tranning can't put that power to the wheels, it's not going to go anywhere. So basically, this ESC is like that. That is the transmission that pushes it to the wheels, in a sense. Okay, so let me just clarify that. But yeah, so anyway, this is what it is, and just kind of want to show you what's going on with the truck. Great truck. Always make sure that your hex nuts are tightened every run. You know, kind of go over the kit every run, just make sure everything's nice and tight and stays that way. And I think you'll have mostly a problem-free X-Maxx, unless you snap an arm from jumping it or bad driving or who knows, whatever. Thank you for tuning in. I don't want to make this video too long. Appreciate it. I'll make a video of these, soldering these. Alex RC Freak out. Peace.